1943, the beginning of the end. The summer sky over Kursk fills with fire. Thousands of tanks clash in the greatest armored battle in history. The Wehrmacht makes its last great offensive in the east. It will fail. The road to Berlin lies open. This is 1943, the year the Allies seize the initiative. The year opens with the agony of Stalingrad reaching its end. On February 2nd, the last German resistance in the city ceases. The Sixth Army is annihilated, 800,000 German and Axis soldiers killed, wounded, or captured in the 5-month battle. The shock reverberates through Germany. For the first time, German radio plays funeral music. 3 days of mourning are declared. The myth of German invincibility is shattered beyond repair. In the Pacific, the long road to Tokyo continues. Guadalcanal is secured in February. American forces begin the strategy of island hopping, bypassing Japanese strongholds, cutting them off from supply, letting them wither on the vine. In the Aleutians, American and Canadian forces retake Ghetto and Kiska. In the Central Pacific, the Marines storm Tarawa in the Gilbert Islands. The fighting is horrific, over 1,000 Marines die taking an island of 3 square miles. But lessons learned at Tarawa will save lives later. In New Guinea, Australian and American forces push the Japanese back through impossible terrain. The jungle fighting is brutal, disease claims as many casualties as combat. Malaria, dysentery, and tropical infections devastate both sides. Admiral Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, is killed in April. American codebreakers have tracked his itinerary. P-38 fighters ambush his aircraft over the Solomon Islands. The death of Japan's most capable naval commander is a severe blow. In North Africa, the end comes quickly. Rommel is recalled to Germany. The Afrika Korps, trapped between Montgomery and Eisenhower, is squeezed into a shrinking perimeter around Tunis. On May 13, over 230,000 Axis soldiers surrender. North Africa is clear. Churchill and Roosevelt meet at Casablanca to plan the next move. They announce the policy of unconditional surrender, no negotiated peace with the Axis. Stalin is pleased, though suspicious. He still demands a second front in France to relieve pressure on the Soviet Union. But the Allies are not ready for France. Instead, they will attack through what Churchill calls the soft underbelly of Europe, Italy. On July 10, 1943, Allied forces land in Sicily, Operation Husky. It is the largest amphibious assault in history to that point. British forces under Montgomery land on the eastern coast. American forces under Patton land on the south. The Sicilian campaign is brief but hard-fought. Patton races Montgomery to Messina, driving his troops relentlessly. American soldiers learn harsh lessons about mountain warfare. The Germans conduct a skillful fighting retreat, evacuating most of their forces to the Italian mainland. But Sicily has profound political consequences. The Italian people are exhausted by war. On July 25, the fascist Grand Council deposes Mussolini. King Victor Emmanuel has him arrested. Italy's new government begins secret negotiations with the Allies. On September 3, Italy signs an armistice. On September 8, it is announced. German troops, prepared for Italian betrayal, seize control throughout Italy and the Balkans. The Italian army disintegrates. German forces occupy Rome. On September 9, Allied forces land at Salerno, south of Naples. The Germans counterattack viciously and nearly drive the invaders into the sea. Only desperate fighting and massive naval gunfire support saves the beachhead. The Italian campaign becomes a bloody slog. The terrain favors defense, mountains, rivers, narrow valleys perfect for ambush. German forces under Field Marshal Albert Kesselring fight with stubborn skill. Each hill must be taken at terrible cost. Monte Cassino, the ancient monastery that dominates the road to Rome, becomes a symbol of the campaign's brutality. For major battles over 5 months will be needed to take it. The monastery itself is controversially destroyed by Allied bombing, but the Germans simply dig into the ruins. Mussolini is rescued from captivity by German paratroopers and installed as head of a puppet state in northern Italy. The Italian Social Republic is a shadow realm, controlled by German forces engaged in civil war against Italian partisans. Mussolini's final chapter has begun. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union prepares for its greatest battle. Both sides know that Germany will strike again. Soviet intelligence identifies the target, the Kursk salient, a massive bulge in the front line. Hitler plans Operation Citadel, a gigantic pincer movement to cut off the Kursk salient and destroy the Soviet forces within. The Germans mass 900,000 troops, 2,700 tanks, 10,000 artillery pieces. It will be the last major German offensive in the East. But the Soviets know what is coming. They have turned the salient into the most heavily fortified position in history. 8 defensive lines. Over 3,000 miles of trenches. Nearly 1 million land mines. 1.3 million troops. 3,600 tanks. 20,000 guns. On July 5, 1943, the Germans attack. The Battle of Kursk has begun. The fighting is beyond description. At Prokhorovka, over 1,200 tanks clash in the largest armored battle ever fought. Soviet and German tanks fight at point-blank range, ramming each other when their guns cannot depress low enough. The smoke and dust are so thick that crews cannot see beyond their own vehicles. For a week, the battle rages. The Germans make gains, but at horrific cost. Every mile forward means thousands of casualties. Soviet reserves seem inexhaustible. The defensive positions absorb blow after blow. Then, on July 12, the Allies land in Sicily. Hitler, fearing the loss of Italy, orders forces withdrawn from Kursk. On July 13, he calls off Operation Citadel. The greatest tank battle in history ends in German defeat. The Soviets immediately counterattack. Operation Kutuzov strikes the Germans in the Ural salient. Operation Rumiantsev smashes through German lines in the south. The cities of Ural, Belgorod, and Kharkov are liberated. From Kursk onward, the Soviets hold the strategic initiative. The Germans can still win tactical victories, still inflict terrible casualties. But they can no longer stop the Soviet steamroller. Every month, the front moves westward. Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, is liberated on November 6. The Germans are pushed back across the Dnieper River. The siege of Leningrad, now in its 3rd year, is partially broken. Soviet forces advance everywhere. In the Atlantic, the U-boat war reaches its climax and its turning point. March 1943 is the worst month for Allied shipping, 627,000 tons sunk. But the Allies are deploying new weapons, long-range aircraft to close the air gap in mid-Atlantic, improved radar, better depth charges, escort carriers. In May, the U-boats suffer catastrophic losses, 41 submarines sunk in a single month. German submarine commander Karl Donitz withdraws his boats from the North Atlantic. The back of the U-boat threat is broken. The combined bomber offensive against Germany intensifies. The RAF continues night bombing of German cities. The Americans bomb precision targets by day, suffering terrible losses to German fighters and flak. The air war is a battle of attrition, but Allied aircraft production outstrips German. On the night of July 27, RAF bombers create a firestorm in Hamburg. The combination of incendiary bombs, summer heat, and dry conditions produces temperatures exceeding 1,400 degrees Fahrenheit. Over 40,000 civilians die. It is the most destructive conventional air raid to that point. But Germany fights on. The Tehran Conference in November brings together Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin for the first time. The three leaders coordinate strategy for 1944. Stalin is promised the second front he has demanded, Operation Overlord, the invasion of France, will occur in May 1944. At Tehran, the outlines of the post-war world begin to emerge. The Big Three discuss the fate of Germany, the creation of the United Nations, the boundaries of Poland. The alliance holds, but tensions between Soviet and Western visions of the future are already visible. The year 1943 also sees the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. In April, when the Germans begin the final liquidation of the ghetto, the remaining Jews fight back. With pistols, homemade bombs, and extraordinary courage, they resist for nearly a month. It is the largest single Jewish revolt against the Nazis. The uprising is crushed. The ghetto is razed. But the resistors have shown that Jews will not go passively to their deaths. Their sacrifice becomes a symbol of courage against impossible odds. As 1943 ends, the momentum of the war has shifted decisively. Germany has lost the initiative in the east and faces invasion from the south. Japan is being pushed back across the Pacific. The Allies grow stronger while the Axis grows weaker. Roosevelt expresses the new confidence: the period of preparation has ended. The period of winning the war has begun. But the hardest fighting lies ahead. D-Day has not yet come. The Philippines remain in Japanese hands. The Holocaust continues. The war will kill millions more before it ends. This is 1943, the year the Allies take the offensive. At Kursk and in the Atlantic, at Sicily and in the Pacific, the forces of freedom advance. The road to victory is now clear. The beginning of the end has arrived. The final battles are approaching. The liberation of Europe is about to begin.